November 4, 1979, the US Embassy in Tehran is overrun by Iranian students. 52 American diplomats and citizens are taken hostage. The world watches in shock. Back in Washington, President Jimmy Carter faces the biggest political crisis of his life. Negotiations fail, economic sanctions fail, the hostages are moved deeper into the embassy compound. The Pentagon is ordered to find a military solution. But Iran is massive, and Tehran is deep inland. The US military hasn't attempted a deep penetration hostage rescue since the Sun Tay raid in Vietnam. Enter Colonel Charlie Beckwith and the newly formed, highly classified Delta Force. They are ready to go. But how do you get 120 commandos into a hostile capital city of 4 million people? You need helicopters, big ones, but standard army helicopters don't have the range to fly from the ocean to Tehran. So, the military drafts an incredibly complex plan. Some say it was an engineering marvel. Others say it was a disaster waiting to happen. Welcome to Operation Eagle Claw. Mistake number 1, the Frankenstein plan. Instead of one branch taking the lead, they split it. The Army provides the commandos. The Air Force provides C-130 transport planes and fuel. The Navy provides the aircraft carrier. And the Marines, they provide the helicopter pilots. It was a political compromise to give every military branch a piece of the glory. It would cost them everything. Mistake number 2, the wrong tools for the job. They chose Navy RH-53D Sea Stallion helicopters. Why? Because they could fold their rotors to fit on an aircraft carrier. But these were designed for sweeping ocean mines, not flying low over brutal desert terrain. Worse, Marine pilots were brought in to fly them. These guys were used to ocean navigation, not featureless deserts. The plan is wild. 3 Air Force MC-130s carry Delta Force from Oman to a spot in the Iranian desert. This spot is called Desert 1. Meanwhile, 8 Sea Stallion helicopters launch from the USS Nimitz. They fly 600 miles inland to meet the C-130s at Desert 1. Right in the middle of nowhere. There, the helicopters refuel from the planes, load the commandos, and fly to a hiding spot near Tehran. The next night, Delta Force drives trucks into the city, storms the embassy, and frees the hostages. The helicopters then pick everyone up at a nearby soccer stadium and fly to a captured airbase. It requires perfect timing, perfect weather, and absolute secrecy. What could possibly go wrong? Well, everything. The mission requires a minimum of 6 operational helicopters to succeed. They brought 8. That means they only had a margin of error of 2 helicopters. For a 600-mile flight over hostile desert, that margin was razor thin. On April 24, 1980, the sun sets. The C-130s take off. Operation Eagle Claw is a go. On the deck of the USS Nimitz, 8 massive Sea Stallion helicopters lift off into the twilight. The pilots put on their night vision goggles. In 1980, this technology was primitive and heavy. 2 hours into the flight, mistake number 3 strikes, the weather intel failure. The meteorologists predicted clear skies. Instead, the helicopters fly straight into a Haboob. A Haboob is a massive, suspended cloud of fine desert dust. It completely blinds the pilots. The temperature inside the cockpit skyrockets. The pilots suffer from intense vertigo. They can't see the ground. They can't see the sky. They can't even see the helicopter next to them. Helicopter number 6 receives a warning light. A main rotor blade is failing. The pilot is forced to land in the desert and abandon the aircraft. His crew is picked up by Helicopter 8. They are now down to 7 helicopters. The margin of error is shrinking fast. The remaining choppers push deeper into the dust storm. The formation scatters in the blinding darkness. Without visual contact, the pilots struggle to keep their massive machines flying straight. The dust gets into the engines, the electronics, and the lungs of the stressed pilots. They desperately need to coordinate, to check on each other, to ask for weather updates. But they can't, which brings us to the next fatal flaw in the plan. Mistake number 4, strict radio silence. To avoid being detected by Soviet listening posts, the planners ordered absolute radio silence. The helicopters were forbidden from communicating with each other or the carrier. Helicopter number 5 starts experiencing severe navigational failures. Its compass goes haywire. The pilot is blind in the dust storm. His instruments are failing, and he has no idea if the others made it. Because of radio silence, he doesn't know that the C-130s have already passed the storm and reached clear skies. Thinking he is flying into a suicidal wall of dust, the pilot of Helicopter 5 makes a tough call. He turns around and flies back to the USS Nimitz. He didn't know that just 20 minutes ahead, the skies were perfectly clear. They are now down to 6 helicopters. This is the absolute minimum needed to continue the mission. One more failure, and the entire rescue operation will have to be aborted. Meanwhile, the C-130s carrying Delta Force have already landed at the rendezvous point. Desert 1. They set up portable runway lights and wait in the pitch-black desert. The commandos secure the perimeter. They expect a quiet, isolated patch of sand, but they are in for a nasty surprise. Mistake number 5. Poor site selection. The CIA had scouted Desert 1 from the air. They thought it was completely isolated. They were wrong. A remote dirt highway ran right through the middle of their secret landing zone. Just minutes after Delta Force lands, headlights appear in the distance. It's an Iranian civilian bus. The commandos have no choice but to stop it. They fire a warning shot, stop the bus, and detain 44 terrified Iranian civilians. The secrecy of the mission is completely blown, but it gets worse. Suddenly, a fuel smuggler's truck approaches the site. Delta Force fires an anti-tank rocket at it. Boom! The truck explodes into a massive fireball, lighting up the desert like a beacon. The driver escapes in another vehicle. The commandos are now exposed and surrounded by a roaring fire. Finally, the 6 remaining helicopters begin to arrive at Desert 1, scattered and 90 minutes late. The pilots are exhausted, traumatized by the dust storm, and completely disoriented. They land in a chaotic scene of burning trucks, parked C-130s, and detained civilians. But at least they have 6 helicopters. They can still execute the mission, until the pilot of helicopter number 2 looks at his instrument panel. Mistake number 6. Zero redundancy. Helicopter number 2 has suffered a catastrophic hydraulic leak during the brutal flight. The primary hydraulic system is completely drained. The aircraft is unsafe to fly. The pilots and the Delta Force commander, Charlie Beckwith, have a tense meeting in the desert. Can they fly the mission with only 5 helicopters? Beckwith does the math. 120 commandos. Heavy weapons. If they take 5 helicopters, they will be severely overweight. If even one helicopter goes down in Tehran, there won't be enough room to extract everyone. The mission rules were clear, minimum of 6. They only have 5. With a heavy heart, Colonel Beckwith gets on the satellite radio to Washington. Abort. Repeat. Abort. The message reaches President Carter. It's a devastating blow. The greatest rescue mission in history is cancelled before firing a single shot at the enemy. But the nightmare is far from over. Now, they have to get everyone out of Iran alive. To return home, the helicopters need to refuel from the C-130 planes. The vehicles are parked haphazardly in the dark, swirling desert sand. And then, the final, fatal mistake is made. Mistake number 7, exhaustion and poor ground coordination. To refuel, helicopter number 3 needs to reposition itself behind a C-130. The pilot is exhausted. His night vision goggles are grainy and useless in the dust kicked up by the rotors. He hovers the massive helicopter just a few feet off the ground. A commando on the ground tries to guide him with a flashlight. But the blowing sand obscures everything. Disoriented by the dust cloud, the pilot loses his spatial awareness. The helicopter drifts to the left, directly toward the C-130 transport plane loaded with fuel and troops. The helicopter's main rotor slices into the C-130's vertical stabilizer. Metal screams. The rotor blades shatter. The helicopter crashes violently onto the roof of the plane. Hundreds of gallons of aviation fuel instantly ignite. A colossal fireball erupts into the night sky, engulfing both aircraft in a hellish inferno. Inside the C-130, Delta Force commandos scramble out of the burning wreckage through side doors. But the 5 aircrew members inside the C-130 and 3 Marines in the helicopter are trapped. Ammunition begins cooking off. Rockets explode randomly in the flames. Desert 1 has turned into an absolute catastrophe. 8 American servicemen are dead. The remaining troops realize they must evacuate immediately before the Iranian military arrives. They abandon the 5 surviving helicopters. leaving behind classified documents and weapons. Everyone piles into the remaining C-130s and flees into the night, leaving the burning wreckage behind. The next morning, President Carter addresses a stunned nation on television. He takes full responsibility for the tragic failure of Operation Eagle Claw. The Iranians broadcast footage of the destroyed American aircraft, parading the failure to the world. The hostages would remain in captivity for a total of 444 days. But the ashes of Desert One sparked a massive revolution in the US military. The Pentagon realized that combining different military branches on the fly was a recipe for disaster. They needed a dedicated, permanent command for special operations. This failure directly led to the creation of SOCOM, Special Operations Command. It also birthed the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment, the legendary Night Stalkers. Never again would the military use the wrong pilots and wrong helicopters for a special mission. Operation Eagle Claw was a tragic, fatal failure, but the hard lessons learned in that Iranian desert shaped the modern special forces we know today.